What is up, Auburn fans? And I apologize for the late night, but welcome in to another episode of Auburn Primetime Live. I'm your host, Blake Lane, and the Auburn Tigers flip a four-star quarterback today from the Penn State Nittany Lions. Peyton Falzone, 6'5", 200 pounds from Nazareth, Pennsylvania. And I'll be honest, this one come out of nowhere. It come out of left field. I had a text today, and I said, hey, this wasn't what I thought Hayes Fawcett was talking about. And he said, brother, we're all shocked. And he said, I had no idea that this was even going to happen, right? And I think we were all a little surprised because we were thinking maybe we were getting a defensive player, maybe a linebacker or something like that when Hayes Fawcett made that tweet. And so earlier today, and so I think we were all a little caught off guard. This is a kid that he was pledged to Penn State since April, I believe. And then all of a sudden, Auburn offers him in June. And here you have it. At the end of June, he flips his commitment from James Franklin and Penn State to Auburn and Hugh Freeze. And I'll tell you this. The kid is talented. Okay, I went and watched some huddle highlights and everything. I watched a YouTube highlight on him earlier, and he's talented. He's raw, but he's talented. And a couple of things that I really enjoyed watching in his highlights was I thought he had pretty solid pocket presence. There was a little bit of times where I feel like he wanted to kind of leave the pocket a little bit before he had to. And I think that's some of the things when you hear some of these high-level guys, these quarterback coaches, I think they have come out and said there's still some things in the mechanics that he needs to work on, and there's still some things that he's really raw at, and we got to work on those things. But as far as just flat-out talent, he is one of the best talents that these people have seen. And my buddy Brett, I want to give him a shout out because he sent me a tweet earlier today, and it was from Brad Mandler, and I guess he is a big-time quarterbacks coach out there, and he's been doing it for 18 years is the tweet that he sent out. And he said, in my 18 years of quarterback training, I have had so many good ones, but I don't think I've ever had a QB who's as physically talented as 2026 Nazareth, Pennsylvania QB Peyton Falzone. On top of those physical attributes is a top 1% drive work ethic to improve. Still a work in progress, but very excited about where things are headed. Now, I believe everything he just said off of what I watched earlier tonight. And I talked about leaving the pocket a little bit early, right? And I felt like he could have stepped into that pocket and made some big-time throws, which he still made big-time throws in the highlight video. I'm not taking that away from him. I thought he was very accurate on the run when he escaped the pocket, and he made really solid throws. Always kept his eyes downfield. I really liked that. It wasn't just run out of the pocket and go cut up field, take off, and try to run. He did do that some. But there was still some times where he would evade rushers and leak out of the pocket and make a really nice throw on the run. But a couple of times, I really would have liked to see him step up into that pocket. And a couple of times, there was a clean pocket to maneuver up into and deliver a nice ball. But I think those are some of the things that they say, hey, there's still time and there's still some things that we need to work on. And when it comes to flat-out running ability, he's 6'5", 200 pounds, and the kid can flat-out move. And that's one thing I picked up on the highlights when I watched him earlier. The kid can motor. And to be that size, and when he gets out into the open field, man, he kind of looks like a deer just galloping out through there. And he's got a couple moves on there where he puts a foot in the ground and he gives a little shiftiness and gets out to the sideline. I was very, very impressed. And you're right, Brad. It is a late night for me. I've ran into some difficulties on here trying to get this thing uploaded. Tried to get it to go live like 10, 15 minutes ago. so I could hammer this one out. And I wasn't going to go live. I was just going to make a regular episode and drop it for y'all in the morning. But some things happened, and I said, well, you know what? I'll just go live, and hopefully they can catch it on the page. But when I watch this kid, man, I think he is a guy that he's going to come into Auburn, and he's not going to look to play right away, okay? And so when Auburn was going after Landon Duckworth, everybody they were on the Duckworth train, and myself included. I've watched Landon Duckworth, and I think he's a hell of an athlete. I think he's a phenomenal player. But there was a lot of questions around the quarterback room with Landon Duckworth. You have Jackson Arnold, okay? So what happens after this year with Jackson Arnold? Does he stay? Well, if he does stay, if he doesn't have the year that they expect him to have this year, and he stays, then what do you do with Deuce Knight? So is Deuce Knight going to portal? Is Deuce Knight going to stay? Well, then there's Landon Duckworth. So Landon Duckworth comes in. Well, then you have three guys sitting there, and they all expect to play, y'all. So it would have been a crowded room, and you probably would have lost somebody in the portal. I mean, it would have just been so jam-packed in there that somebody probably would have got their feelings hurt, and somebody would have portaled. And so that is why I didn't see Duckworth coming to Auburn, even though I really wanted him to, because I think he's a special player. But I just never saw the fit, because you look at South Carolina, okay? When you look at South Carolina, Sellers is probably gone after this year, right? If everything pans out like we all expect it to, he's going to have some say a Heisman-worthy year, and if he does, he's NFL draft bound. So then South Carolina, like Duckworth, could probably walk in there and play. And I had some South Carolina people in my Twitter replies today, and they're like, yeah, that's not the case at all. No, it is the case. It is. Like, stop kidding yourself, and stop acting like you got another 5-star quarterback just lingering around and all this Landon Duckworth special. Stop. I think Landon Duckworth saw a quicker path to playing time at South Carolina. And I think that is why Auburn made this move to go get Peyton Falzone. And I think he's a guy where he's not going to cause a lot of friction in that quarterback room. He's going to buy his time. Take a Ty Simpson, for example. He's going to buy his time, and he's going to wait, and he's going to try to develop, and he's going to try to do all the right things and wait for Deuce Knight and Jackson Arnold to get out of there. And then it could be Peyton Falzone time. And I think that's what you're getting in this type of quarterback. I think he could also get some snaps inside the red zone when he gets to Auburn, because his ability to run the football inside the 20. Go watch it on the highlight tape. Big, physical, gets north and south, man, and can also, like I said, he can also shake and bake a little bit. All right, it's not nothing flashy, but he can do it, and it looks smooth. It looked really, really smooth. But he's a kid he had offers from Iowa, Utah, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, a couple of other places, and Auburn just come out of the blue, man. Like I told y'all, when I text my guy today and I said, "Where did this come from?" He said, "I have no idea." He said, "Nobody saw this coming." I even checked Twitter, and Zach Blackerby was shocked. So I know if Zach was shocked, we were all shocked. Because Zach was like, wow, let's go live, and shout out to his coverage and all the coverage, man. The War Report, my guy Dustin over at the Up Tempo, like all these guys that are covering this, man, I know they were all shocked. And it just come out of the blue, but I think it's something that Auburn needed. I think this is a shot in the arm on the recruiting trail, because the past 7 to 10 days, you have not had a lot of momentum. And it has seemed really bleak and dark, and a lot of negativity in the fan base, right? A lot of arguing back and forth on social media between fans. And, that's one thing that kind of eats at me, because I think you have to look at it as, just because you're mad at the way recruiting is going right now, that doesn't mean that you think Auburn's going to fail this year. And I think that's where a lot of people are getting it twisted. Is some people, they look at the ones who are frustrated with recruiting, and they're like, "Oh, you're just so negative about Auburn. You just think we're going to lose. You just think we're going to lose it." No, we're not saying that. We're just saying that it's embarrassing for Auburn to have that number next to their name. That's what we're saying. Because I had a buddy text me this. I swear to y'all, he texted me this the other day and said, so he said, "I'm going to hit you with something straight." And I said, "Go ahead, man." I said, "What's up?" He said, "Y'all had a certain energy towards Brian Harsin about recruiting." And I said, "Yeah, okay." And he said, "Well, the same number is next to Hugh's name. So where's that energy?" And I was like, Hugh, the first 2 years, it's completely different. That's why the energy is different. Okay. Now, granted, this guy's an Alabama fan, so I get what he was trying to do, right? But I said the first 2 years are different. Hugh has done his job. These kids are just wanting to see Auburn win. All right. And so I had to take up for my guy Hugh there. But I can see where on social media things like that start getting thrown around, and then people want to go right at each other. So this was a shot in the arm to inject Auburn fans with a little happiness. I saw some tweets out there today that was like, the barn being on fire didn't last long and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, man, look, we're back. We're united as a fan base again. We're not arguing and all of that stuff. So I think this was, even though he wasn't a guy that we had heard and we had been sought after, and all the fans were, where is home and all that stuff that they do on Twitter. It was still to see a guy commit to Auburn, and then you hear these QB coaches rant and rave about him and talk about how talented he is and things like that. I think that's what gets you really, really pumped up about this commitment. And I challenge y'all to go watch his highlight stuff on YouTube, man. I think you will really enjoy it. I think I watched I think it was like a 10, 11-minute video on him, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And like I said, I think he's going to be a work in progress. I think he's raw. I do think he's super talented. I think there's some stuff in the throwing motion that they got to work on and everything, but that's like they said, man, there's that 1% of drive and work ethic there that a lot of people don't have, and this kid has it. So, coming from Pennsylvania to Auburn, there's still a long way to go in recruiting. That's a long way to go away from home. But I think Auburn has found their quarterback, and I think this kind of settles the Duckworth, Auburn, or South Carolina argument and all of that discussion. So, guys, I'm not going to keep y'all any longer. One thing I do want to say before we get out of here, I want to go over here to these comments, and then I want to talk. I want to give a big shout out to Janai Broome. He was drafted in the NBA draft tonight, and I think it's once again really, really big for Auburn basketball to see another player drafted. And I'll go out on a limb here, and yes, I do think he is the best to ever play at Auburn. And I know the old heads might get mad at me for saying that with Chuck and the statue outside, and I get it, right? And I just think he's the most decorated, and I think he filled it up in his 3 years at Auburn, and I just think the Final Four was the icing on the cake, right? And so I think he's the best to wear the orange and blue on the basketball side of things, and him getting drafted was just phenomenal for the program. Bruce Pearl to be able to use that as another recruiting tool and say, here, I got one more on the table for you. All right, here's Janai Broome. And so I want to give a big shout out to him. I think it's massive, and I think we all got to relax seeing that Tahad Pettiford was no longer in the draft, and we didn't have to worry about him. So shout out to Auburn basketball. Can't wait. I think somebody said it was like 18 more weeks or something like that before tip. So it's it's approaching quick. It'll be here before you know it, and football season will be here before you know it. So let's get over here to some of these comments real quick, and then I'll let you guys get on out of here. Miss Devin says, War Eagle, always fun to hear about a new commit, right? I think Auburn needed it. I'm telling you. Yep, Brad, we talked about that one. We need a good quarterback. I'll tell you this. I think we have to kind of, I don't know how I want to put this, is we rode Peyton, and it was, I get it, it was deserved because he had very poor play, but we worried so much about quarterback. Let's see what Jackson can do in the 2025 season. Let's see if he can get off to a quick start out at Baylor, and let's see if he can find a rhythm and get going. And then we might have our quarterback. You might have a quarterback in Jackson this year, and then he might have such a good year that he decides to go pro, and you got Deuce Knight waiting in the wings. And so I think we're going to be okay at quarterback, and you got a kid here who you could develop, and I think he could turn into a good one. So I think we're sitting in a good spot. At least some of the Peyton Thorne haters will spell this guy's name right. I saw one, Brad, that said, he said something like, my heart sunk when I saw his name was Peyton or something. Yeah, Peyton was one of the worst quarterbacks ever. He wasn't the worst Auburn quarterback because I could spit off a name, Kyle Frazier, that was brutal. So, Brad Brown, I see what I mean. I haven't changed my mind. Auburn beats UGA this year. We'll get to that. I think at night, he's one of the worst quarterbacks. Yeah, I think at night Auburn has a chance, and I think this is the year that you have to get them because they've been beating the piss out of you lately, and they've dominated the rivalry the past 20 years. So what better time than now? You got to go beat them. You got to stop playing with your food. And when you have a chance to beat them, you give the game away. Man, what people are saying about this kid, all the same things they said. Oh, man. Yeah, that's a talent right there that it just didn't pan out. I thought he was going to be an absolute weapon, too. The only thing is he come in with a guy who was, so. But I did think inside the red zone that night in Dallas, I was like, oh, man. I was like, we got a treat. I was like, we got a guy that can just get over the top. He can run people over. But it didn't work out that way. So Auburn will beat Baylor. I think so, too. We'll break it down eventually. The closer it gets, I think Auburn is a plus at every position minus quarterback probably. And I've mentioned in previous shows, maybe linebacker. Like Baylor might have the upper hand at linebacker. Maybe. So I don't know. I think Auburn holds the edge in the game. I think Auburn's way more talented. I know Baylor was pretty good last year, but they started out terrible. And then they find some things and they get into a rhythm and they reel off some games and all, and then they finish the year strong. But LSU beat the piss out of them. So I expect the same for Auburn. Maybe not the way LSU did it because you're going to be at Baylor, but come on, y'all. We should beat Baylor. But it was Peyton Thorne. Yeah, he was a thorn, all right. Baylor arguably has better coaching for it. Yeah, you could say that. I didn't even think about that, Brad. Certainly you could say that. Dave Aranda. I'll side with you there for sure. But that's about it. I think we have the better offensive line. I think we got the better defensive line. I think we got a better secondary. We damn sure got better wide receivers. They might have a better They might have better running backs. The only reason I say that is just because ours, they're not totally proven. You know, I know Damari had his carries, but they haven't had the workload, right? So I just, it's hard for me to say. That's another spot where they might have the upper hand. Maybe. So, but everything else, man, I think special teams, I think it sides in your favor. You got Alex McPherson back. We have to go up. Can't start off weak. That's for sure. You got to go out. Still not sure I like playing on a Friday night. I do like playing on a Friday night, and it's in Waco. Texas high school football is going to be on. I think that you playing on Friday night is going to have all eyes on you in the college football world. And what better way to fix recruiting? What better way? There is no better way than to have all eyes on you on a Friday night. And the people out in Texas might be a little scatterbrained and say, oh, well, there's a game at Baylor tonight, and you got, other games going on around the state, and it might be all over the place for them. It might not be as a hostile of an environment as you would think on a Friday night. I think that could take a little juice out of the Baylor Bears. Yeah. I really, really like it being on a Friday night. I do. And I think it works well for Auburn because you're going to be on Fox. You're not going to be on SEC Network or ESPN Plus or anything. No, you're going to be on Primetime Fox. So you're getting seen by everybody. You know how Auburn's recruiting these kids out of Maryland? And everybody in the country, you're going to be the lone game on. You're going to be the lone game on. All eyes are going to be on you. Everybody's going to be tuned in. What a way to fix recruiting right there. What a way for Hugh Freeze and the Auburn Tigers to go out there and say, hey, we're about to lay it on you, and we're about to make a statement. Also, Jackson Arnold going back to the state of Texas. Just saying. Go get it done, man. Go get it done. What a better way to start your season off in front of America to make a statement for the Auburn Tigers. So that's how I feel about it. Thank y'all for joining me tonight. It was a late one, Brad. I appreciate y'all for being in here. Hopefully I ain't got to do another one like this at 11:41 at night and all that good stuff. So appreciate y'all. War Damn Eagle. I'll catch y'all on the next one, man. Tuesday night, live edition, 7 p.m. Central. That is every single week we go live Tuesday night. So I'll see y'all there. Might be dropping another little episode over the weekend. I like to drop them little episodes on the weekend to give y'all something to watch there. So appreciate y'all. Love y'all. War Damn, baby. I'm out.